Historians love to say the British Empire declined gradually, peacefully, through decolonization. That is a lie. The British Empire did not fade, it collapsed, economically, financially, and mathematically. An empire that ruled a quarter of the planet, commanded the oceans, and controlled the world's reserve currency destroyed itself through one fatal pattern. Spend like an empire, earn like a nation, and borrow like the future doesn't matter. This is the real story of how the largest empire in history bankrupted itself, and why the warning is more relevant now than ever before. Chapter 1. The richest empire on Earth. By the late 1800s, Britain was the center of the world. London was the global capital of finance. The British pound was the world's reserve currency. British ships controlled every major sea route. Factories in Manchester and Birmingham powered the Industrial Revolution. Britain wasn't just a country, it was the beating economic heart of the planet. But underneath the wealth and power was a dangerous illusion, the belief that this prosperity was permanent. Every empire before Britain made the same mistake. Every empire after Britain repeated it. Britain believed it could rule vast territories, maintain the largest navy on Earth, police rebellions, fight global wars, build railroads, ports, and military bases, fund colonies across 6 continents while keeping taxes low and spending high. It worked until it didn't. Chapter 2. The First Crack. Global Overextension. By 1900, Britain controlled 25% of the world's landmass. But empire is expensive. Every colony needed administration, military presence, infrastructure, ports, naval patrols, civil service, communication systems, security forces, and most colonies did not pay for themselves. India was profitable, Egypt was profitable, but much of Africa, the Middle East, and Asia were not. For decades, Britain masked this cost through its enormous industrial profits. But around 1900, global competition arrived. Germany industrialized, the US industrialized, Japan industrialized. Suddenly, Britain was no longer the world's factory. It was an aging industrial power trying to maintain a global empire with shrinking revenue. Still, Britain kept spending. Still, Britain kept expanding its obligations. Still, Britain believed the money would always be there. But history shows, empires rarely collapse when they are weak. They collapse when they are arrogant. Chapter 3. World War I. The Debt Explosion. In 1914, Britain made the single most expensive decision in its entire imperial history. It chose to fight in World War I. The war cost Britain over $40 billion in today's money, an unimaginable sum at the time. To fund the war, Britain doubled its national debt, introduced income tax for the first time, printed money backed by nothing, sold a massive portion of its gold reserves, borrowed heavily from the United States. Before 1914, Britain was the world's largest creditor. By 1918, Britain had become the world's largest debtor. The shift was catastrophic. The global financial system flipped overnight. America became the banker of the world. Britain became financially dependent. This was the beginning of the end. Britain may have won the war militarily, but economically, it never recovered. Chapter 4. The Gold Standard Trap. After World War I, Britain attempted to restore the global financial order. They tried to return the pound to its pre-war gold value. This was a fatal mistake. Before the war, first were 486. After the war, Britain forced the pound back to 486, even though its economy was half as productive. This made British exports incredibly expensive. Factories shut down, unemployment soared, industrial regions collapsed. The government kept borrowing to stabilize the economy. Trying to pretend the empire was still strong made it weaker. The pound's overvaluation destroyed British manufacturing and accelerated national bankruptcy. Chapter 5. World War II. The Final Blow. If World War I wounded the British Empire, World War II killed it. The war cost Britain roughly 3 times its GDP. No nation can survive such a blow without bankruptcy. Britain liquidated almost all foreign assets, sold off overseas investments, borrowed massively from the US again, rationed food for years after the war, lost 1/3 of its merchant fleet, saw its colonies erupt with independence movements. By 1945, Britain was victorious militarily but ruined financially, and the U.S. took full advantage. In 1946, the United States offered Britain a loan, but only if Britain dismantled imperial trade protections. If Britain wanted money, it had to give up the empire's economic structure. This ended Britain's ability to extract wealth from colonies. The empire became a financial burden, not an advantage. Within 20 years, the entire British imperial system collapsed. Chapter 6. Loss of the reserve currency. The final death blow came quietly. In 1944, during the Bretton Woods Conference, the US dollar replaced the British pound as the global reserve currency. This shift was not symbolic, it was fatal. A reserve currency gives a nation unlimited borrowing ability, global demand for its currency, cheaper imports, massive geopolitical power, control over international finance. Britain lost all of that overnight. Without the pound as anchor of global trade, the empire had no economic engine left. The world no longer needed the British financial system. The empire's business model was gone. A global empire cannot survive without global currency power, and from that moment onward, the decline was irreversible. Chapter 7. The Quiet Collapse. Between 1947 and 1970, the British Empire disappeared. India gone, Pakistan gone, Kenya gone, Nigeria gone, Hong Kong lost, Egypt gone, Malaysia gone, Singapore gone, Caribbean colonies gone. The largest empire in human history collapsed without a single foreign invasion. Not because it was conquered, not because it was defeated militarily, but because it was bankrupted by its own decisions, its own debts, its own arrogance. Economic collapse always comes before political collapse. Britain didn't lose its empire. It could no longer afford it. The collapse of the British Empire is often told as a peaceful transition, a voluntary release of colonies, a graceful exit from global power. But this is mythology. The truth is harsher, uglier, and far more revealing. Britain didn't choose to give up its empire. The empire became too expensive to keep. This is the second half of the real story, the part that exposes how the world's most powerful nation destroyed itself through economics, not war. Chapter 8. The Financial Death Spiral After 1945. After World War II, Britain emerged victorious but economically crippled. The numbers were catastrophic. National debt exceeded 250% of GDP. Industry was bombed and outdated. Only 1/3 of merchant ships remained. Foreign reserves were almost zero. Gold stockpile was drained. Britain owed the US billions in wartime loans. The empire had become a patient kept alive by borrowed oxygen. Still, Britain pretended it remained a global power. Maintaining bases worldwide, keeping troops in dozens of colonies, fighting wars in Asia, Africa, the Middle East, upholding a massive navy, trying to negotiate from a position of strength it no longer possessed. This illusion cost billions, and illusions are expensive. The empire's finances entered a death spiral. 1. Britain borrowed money to sustain the empire. 2. Interest payments drained the treasury. 3. More borrowing was needed. 4. Inflation accelerated. 5. The pound weakened. 6. Maintaining the empire became even more expensive. The world saw Britain still wearing the crown, but the jewels had already been pawned. Chapter 9. The Suez Crisis. The moment the world saw the collapse, 1956, was the moment the British Empire died publicly. Egypt's president, Gamal Abdel Nasser, nationalized the Suez Canal, Britain's most strategic asset. Britain, France, and Israel launched a military attack to retake it. Militarily, Britain succeeded. Economically, Britain was destroyed because the U.S., from the New World power, refused to support them. President Eisenhower threatened to dump U.S.-held British pounds, cut oil supplies, crash the British economy overnight. Britain faced a brutal truth. It could no longer act independently. It could no longer project power. It could no longer fight a war without Washington's approval. London backed down and withdrew. The humiliation was total. The Suez Crisis wasn't just a foreign policy failure. It was the global announcement: the British Empire is finished. Empires do not collapse quietly. They collapse when someone else tests their strength and they cannot respond. Chapter 10. Decolonization. Not choice, but necessity. After Suez, the empire unraveled at breakneck speed. Between 1957 and 1968, almost the entire empire dissolved. The official story claims Britain granted independence. The truth is that Britain couldn't afford not to. Every colony was a financial burden. Security forces, infrastructure, administration, debt service, trade subsidies, military protection, the cost of suppressing rebellions. The empire was burning through money Britain did not have, and the colonies knew it. Nationalist movements took advantage. "We want independence." Britain replied, "We can't afford to keep you anyway." It wasn't ideological, it was financial survival. Britain handed out independence the way a drowning man throws off weight. Chapter 11. The collapse of the pound. As the empire fell apart, so did Britain's currency. Before World War I, first were $4.86. After World War II, short to earn $2.80. By the 1967 devaluation under Prime Minister Harold Wilson, Wursarn x 2.40. The pound, once the backbone of global trade, was now losing credibility rapidly. Losing the reserve currency status meant Britain could no longer borrow cheaply. Imports became expensive, inflation increased, the cost of living exploded, wages stagnated, strikes erupted, industry failed. In the 1970s, Britain begged the IMF for a bailout. Think about that. The country that once funded the world was now asking the world to rescue it. This was the true bottom. The British Empire didn't simply shrink, it reversed roles with its former colonies. Once the center of global finance, Britain became a struggling debtor nation dependent on foreign capital. Chapter 12. The long-term consequences of imperial bankruptcy. The death of the British Empire reshaped the entire world. Here's what the collapse created. 1. The rise of the United States as the sole superpower. Suez proved the U.S. controlled global finance. Britain became the junior partner permanently. 2. The rise of the European Union. Britain was too weak to stand alone. Europe forced integration to avoid future collapses. 3. The restructuring of global trade. The pound's collapse ended centuries of British economic dominance. 4. The shift from naval empires to financial empires. The U.S. replaced gunboats with dollars and Wall Street replaced the Royal Navy. 5. The new age of decolonization. The British collapse triggered independence movements worldwide. 6. The transformation of Britain's society. Energy crises, inflation, strikes. The 1970s were a direct result of imperial bankruptcy. The British Empire's collapse didn't happen on a battlefield. It happened on ledgers, balance sheets, and debt tables. Chapter 13. The most important lesson from Britain's fall. The fall of the British Empire teaches one core truth. An empire collapses the moment it costs more to maintain than it earns. Britain spent, beyond its means, beyond its economic capacity, beyond its industrial strength, beyond its currency's reputation, beyond its ability to borrow. And because it refused to accept reality, the collapse became catastrophic. But here is the terrifying part. The same pattern is happening again today. Not in Britain, but in the United States. Chapter 14. The final warning. The British Empire believed, we are too powerful to fail. We are the center of the world. Our currency is forever. Our influence is permanent. No one can replace us. The United States believes the same things today, but no empire in history has survived. Overextension, debt spirals, inflation, global competition, currency decline, political paralysis. The British collapse is not ancient history, it is a mirror, and the reflection looks uncomfortably familiar. Britain didn't fall because of enemies, it fell because of mathematics. Every empire collapses when the cost of being a superpower becomes greater than the ability to pay for it.